You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better. Put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of What If Naruto Enters K-Pop Demon Hunters. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. She nodded, tightening her grip. They circled each other in the dirt ring. Kakashi moved first, a lazy downward cut that would have gotten him skewered in a real fight. Sakura shifted, feet sliding as she angled her blade up, deflecting his strike without brute force. Good, he said, tapping her stance with the tip of his weapon. Flow into the next one. She adjusted, rolling her weight to her back foot, blade darting forward in a light, quick jab. Kakashi parried easily, but his brow lifted. Her form was holding. Another strike came, then another. She blocked, swayed, redirected. Her movements weren't stiff anymore, they were light, rolling from one stance to the next, her blade flicking out like branches bending in the wind. Kakashi's pace quickened. The strikes came sharper, angles tighter. She stumbled once, caught herself, then recovered. Her blade moved faster now, short bursts of cuts and deflections stringing together, a rhythm building beneath her feet. For the first time, Sakura's lips curved into a small, bright smile. Not because she was perfect, she wasn't, but because she was getting it. Kakashi pressed her again, his blows coming nearly at full speed now. She pivoted, blade snapping out in a quick riposte. It barely grazed his arm, but it was enough to make the bell at his belt jingle. Sakura froze, stunned. Then her smile widened. Kakashi lowered his blade, his eye soft. Not bad at all. Her chest heaved, hair clinging to her damp cheeks, but she couldn't stop grinning. For the first time, she didn't feel like dead weight. She felt like part of the storm. By the time Kakashi finally lowered his blade and called an end, the sun was already bleeding into the horizon. Dusk painted the clearing in shades of amber and violet, long shadows stretching across the trampled grass. Naruto and Sasuke were still catching their breath from their endless spar, shirts clinging with sweat, wooden blades resting across their knees. Their movements had grown sharper with every exchange, each clash carving them closer to perfection. On the other side of the clearing, Sakura dropped into the grass, cheeks flushed, hair plastered to her forehead. Her arms trembled from effort, but there was a smile on her face, a small, stubborn one that didn't fade even as her body ached. Kakashi leaned against one of the stumps, arms folded, his visible eye sweeping over them all. 3 recruits, battered and sweaty, sitting in the fading light like warriors in the making. "You're better than you were this morning," he said simply. Naruto grinned despite his exhaustion. "Then tomorrow, we'll be even better." Sasuke smirked faintly, silent but agreeing. Sakura wiped her forehead, still smiling. For once, she didn't feel like the weak link. Not tonight. The bells at Kakashi's belt jingled softly as he straightened. "Rest well. Tomorrow will hurt worse." They groaned, but no one complained. As the last of the daylight slipped away, they sat there together, sweaty, sore, but stronger than they had been when the day began. A team, rough around the edges, but a team all the same. 3 months passed in the blur of sweat, bruises, and endless drills. Naruto's whirlpool had grown sharper, his storm faster, and the weight of his strikes could rattle even Sasuke's careful guard. Sasuke himself had refined the interceptor into something dangerous, cold precision turned into instinct, every step a trap waiting to spring. And Sakura, she had changed the most. The willow style had taken root in her. Her blade moved quicker now, stances flowing smooth and light, her cuts coming like wind through branches. The weak link was gone. She was a fighter. By the end of the third month, they no longer fought as three separate recruits. They moved as one. It was at dusk, the clearing painted orange, when Kakashi finally broke the rhythm. He leaned against the stump, arms folded, bells jingling faintly at his hip. "That's enough," he said. They stopped, panting, blades resting at their sides. Kakashi's visible eye curved faintly. 3 months of BLD, sweat, and no small amount of headaches. "You've earned the next step." Naruto straightened, grin tugging at his lips despite the exhaustion. Sasuke tilted his blade down, calm but expectant. Sakura's chest heaved, but her eyes burned with quiet resolve. Kakashi pushed off the stump, his tone turning firm. "It's time. Tomorrow, we take our first mission." The words hit like lightning through the clearing. Naruto's grin widened. Sasuke's lips curved into the faintest smirk. And Sakura, for the first time, didn't feel fear, only determination. They were no longer trainees. They were a squad. The mission hall was alive with voices, hunters and recruits moving in and out with reports and requests. The air smelled of parchment, ink, and steel. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura stood shoulder to shoulder before the desk, their posture straight but their expressions solemn. Iruka looked up from the papers stacked in front of him. His eyes softened at first, 3 familiar faces, no longer children, standing ready. Then he smiled. "Oh, Team 7, he said warmly. "Here for your first mission." They nodded in unison, silent but firm. Iruka chuckled, shaking his head. "So serious." "That's good. Because these aren't errands or field trips." He leaned forward, his tone sharpening. "These missions are about slaying demons. It's lives at stake every time you walk out that door." Naruto's grip tightened on his sword strap. Sasuke's eyes didn't flicker. Sakura's breath caught, but she held Iruka's gaze steady. Iruka studied them for a moment, then his smile returned, smaller, but genuine. "All right then. Let's see what the world throws at you first." He reached for a scroll. Iruka unrolled a mission scroll, scanning its contents. He tapped the parchment with 2 fingers. "Your first assignment, an island village near Wave Country. Simple, but not without risk. A cluster of low-level demons has been terrorizing the locals, livestock slaughtered, fishermen dragged under, travelers vanishing in the forests. Nothing too powerful but enough to cause fear." He looked up at them, his expression hardening. "Fear spreads faster than BLD. If left unchecked, it'll hollow a village out from the inside. Your job is to land, assess, and wipe out the threat." Naruto nodded sharply, hand resting on his crimson blade. Sasuke's dark eyes flicked to the map stamped on the scroll, already studying terrain. Sakura swallowed, then straightened, willow-style manual tucked against her chest like a secret promise. Iruka rolled the scroll tight and handed it to Kakashi, who had been silent at their backs until now. The bells at his belt chimed as he tucked it away. "Boats leave at dawn," Kakashi said simply. "Pack light. Once we land, it's straight to work." The next morning, the docks smelled of salt and wood smoke. The sea stretched wide and restless, the horizon gray with early fog. Team 7 boarded a small craft, sails snapping as the wind caught. Naruto leaned against the rail, eyes fixed forward. "Demons on an island, huh? Easy warm-up." Sasuke shot him a sidelong glance. "Unless they're smarter than you're giving them credit for." Sakura sat near the bow, hands tight on her pack, the sea spray dampening her hair. She was quiet, but her eyes were sharp. Kakashi stood near the mast, unreadable as ever. "Don't underestimate." That's lesson 1. The island loomed ahead, dark with forest, its coastline jagged and sharp. Their first hunt had begun. The ride was longer than they expected. The sea wind cut cold through their clothes, and the further they traveled, the quieter the waves seemed to grow. By the time the helicopter dipped low, the island came into view: jagged cliffs, dense forests, and scattered patches of smoke rising from distant chimneys. The craft touched down on the small helipad carved into the rocky coast. The rotors slowed, the noise fading until all that remained was the sound of gulls crying overhead. Naruto stepped off first, boots crunching against the concrete, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Sasuke followed, scanning the treeline with sharp eyes. Sakura came last, a shiver running down her spine the moment her feet hit the ground. The island felt wrong. Not just the silence though that was heavy enough. Not just the smell faintly sour, like salt and BLD mixed together. It was something deeper. The air itself carried a weight, like unseen eyes pressed down from the shadows. Naruto's brow furrowed. "You feel that?" Sasuke gave a single nod. "Something's off." Sakura swallowed hard, her grip tightening on her pack straps. "It's like the ground's sick." Kakashi stepped down last, the bells at his hip jingling faintly as the wind stirred. He scanned the coast, his posture deceptively casual, but his voice left no room for doubt. "Stay sharp. Whatever's here doesn't want us here." The path inland waited, winding up from the coast toward the scattered townships. The air only grew heavier as they stepped forward. Their first mission had begun in earnest. The path from the coast twisted up through gnarled trees and thick undergrowth. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. No birdsong. No insects. Just the crunch of their boots and the faint rattle of Kakashi's bells. Then they saw the first sign. An overturned cart lay half buried in mud off the trail. Its wood was splintered, claw marks carved deep into the planks. The wheels were cracked like something had ripped them apart instead of breaking naturally. Sakura stopped short, her stomach tightening. "That's not human." Naruto crouched by the marks, tracing them with his fingertips. The grooves were jagged, uneven, too wide for any beast he knew. His jaw clenched. Demons. No mistake. A few yards further, the air grew heavy with the stench of rot. They came upon what remained of a deer, half its body missing, the rest slashed open and left to spoil. Flies buzzed in thick clouds, but the cuts weren't clean. They were savage, torn, as though the creature had been played with. Sasuke's eyes darkened. They didn't kill to eat. Kakashi's gaze lingered on the carcass, then shifted toward the treeline. No. This was for fun. The forest pressed tighter as they climbed higher, shadows draping the trail. The final sign came suddenly. A strip of fabric caught in the brambles, stained dark with BLD near it. A child's shoe lay half buried in dirt. Sakura's breath caught, her chest tightening. Naruto's hand found the hilt of his sword, knuckles white. His voice was low, steady, but full of fire. "We're close." Kakashi's bells jingled faintly as he adjusted his stance. Eyes open. The village isn't far. The weight in the air thickened. Whatever hunted here had been busy and it wasn't done yet. The smell hit them before the sight did. As the trees parted, the village came into view and the world went still. Houses torn open, walls streaked with BLD, streets littered with broken carts and shattered doors. The silence was thick, broken only by the buzzing of flies. Bodies lay everywhere. Men, women, even children. Slash marks carved into FLSH and wood alike, not the jagged tears of low-level demons, but long, brutal cuts that could only have come from something wielding a weapon, something massive. Naruto's throat tightened as his hand closed around the hilt of his crimson blade. This wasn't minor. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, cold and calculating. No. This was deliberate. Sakura's face was pale, but she forced her body forward. She'd seen BLD before, but never like this. And then movement. At the edge of the street, a small huddle. A woman clutching a boy, shielding him with her body. An older man slumped nearby, bottle in hand, his face flushed. Alive. Somehow. Sakura was the first to move, rushing to them, her pack already unstrapped. She dropped to her knees, checking the woman's arms, wrapping gauze where the claws had raked her skin. "It's all right, you're safe now," she whispered, voice steady despite her shaking hands. The boy clung to his mother, tears strkng his face. The woman choked out thanks, eyes full of fear. Sasuke's voice broke the silence, low and firm. "What happened here?" The older man lifted his head sluggishly, the stink of alcohol thick around him. His words slurred, but clear enough. "Big One came with the others. Tore the place apart. Didn't want me. Said drunks taste bad, souls slip away too slow." He let out a bitter laugh, eyes red. Kakashi stood at the edge of the square, watching quietly. He'd heard the rumor before some demons hated the taste of liquor in flesh, found it sour. Once, one had tried to brag about it. Kakashi remembered answering with a clean beheading. He looked at his team. Naruto, fists clenched, ready to burn the forest down. Sasuke, eyes sharp, mind already calculating. Sakura, kneeling in BLD, working steadily despite the horror. For the first time, Kakashi didn't need to command. He let them take the lead. They had earned it. Naruto crouched low near the ruined street, eyes scanning the ground. The mud was torn deep, clawed tracks gouged into the earth. But what caught his attention wasn't just the size, it was the wetness. A wall nearby glistened as though it had been drenched by waves, waterlogged and warped. But they were far inland. The ocean was miles away, and the sky above was clear. It hadn't rained in days. Naruto's stomach dropped. He rose slowly, his voice low but certain. "Easily an A-class demon. Maybe worse. Possible nuke Nin." The words made Sakura freeze mid-motion, her hands tightening on the bandage she was tying. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, sharp and cold. Nuke Nin. The word was poison among hunters. Hunters who had fallen twisted by power, consumed by the very demons they once fought. They weren't just strong. They were unpredictable, cunning, and merciless. Legend said no two ever turned the same way, but all were monsters in the truest sense. "Hunters turned demon," Sakura whispered, her voice trembling. "That's why the cuts looked like swords." Sasuke's jaw clenched. His gaze followed the waterlogged streaks trailing away from the village. "And if it's one of them, it's not just hunting for food. It's hunting for sport." Kakashi's expression darkened, the faintest shadow crossing his visible eye. He didn't speak, but the way his fingers brushed the bells at his belt said enough. The air seemed heavier now, the island pressing down on them with every breath. Naruto's hand clenched around his crimson hilt. "If it really is a nuke Nin, this won't be like anything we've faced before." The tracks led deeper into the forest, vanishing into shadow. They didn't chase the tracks right away. Kakashi gave a short order, and the team shifted their focus. Survivors came first. Naruto and Sasuke moved quickly through the town, searching house to house. They found only a handful of people still alive, a couple of fishermen, 2 elderly women, and a boy barely older than Inari, trembling under a table. All of them shaken, some wounded, all terrified. They gathered them together and led them to the cabin on the northern edge of town, one of the few buildings still intact. Its walls were thick, the roof sturdy, and the windows small enough to bar. Inside, Sakura went to work. She dug into her pack and pulled out a small vial of wisteria oil, the scent sharp and floral as she sprinkled it along the doorframe and windowsills. The survivors watched silently as she worked, fear softening into faint relief. Wisteria wouldn't hold against an A-class or a nuke Nin, but against the smaller ones, the scavengers that always followed in their wake, it was enough. Sakura finished her circuit and capped the vial, standing back. "Lower demons won't get close now," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You'll be safe here." The woman who held Inari clutched her child closer, tears running down her face. Thank you, thank you. Naruto leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes hard. It's not much, but it'll keep them breathing till we deal with what's out there. Sasuke stood by the window, gaze scanning the darkening tree line. And what's out there isn't going to stop with this village. Kakashi lingered at the doorway, one hand resting on the frame. His single eye softened at the sight of Sakura reassuring the survivors, then hardened as it shifted back to the forest. We've bought them time, he said. His voice was low, steady, carrying the weight of command. Now it's our turn. The forest waited, silent, heavy, and wrong. The survivors were settled, the cabin sealed with the sharp sting of wisteria. With nothing more they could do for the villagers, Team 7 turned back toward the forest. The four of them slipped into formation without a word. Naruto took the lead, crimson hilt steady in his grip, his stance wide and alert. Sasuke held the left flank, his black blade angled, eyes sharp on every shadow. Sakura moved to the right, her steps measured, willow stance keeping her light and ready. Kakashi trailed behind them, watchful as ever, his bells jingling softly with every step. The forest swallowed them. The air grew colder, thicker, like it was pressing in on their lungs. Every tree seemed too still, every branch too heavy with silence. Naruto pushed forward, every muscle taut, his gaze sweeping the ground for signs of the trail. Sasuke matched his pace, quiet as shadow. Sakura kept her breaths controlled, recalling the stances Kakashi drilled into her, determined not to falter. Kakashi followed at the rear, his expression hidden behind the mask, but his thoughts sharper than steel. They shouldn't be here, he thought, chest tight. Genin shouldn't be chasing an A-class. Not even a B-class. This is a mission for seasoned hunters, not children still learning to flow together. But there was no choice. The demons had already cut this island open. The tracks didn't lie. And if it truly was a Nukenin leading them, every moment they wasted was another soul lost. He let his hand brush against the bells at his hip. They chimed faintly, grounding him. I swore I'd protect them. Whatever waits out there, if it comes to it, I'll take the hit. Not them. The trail of waterlogged earth led deeper, vanishing into a darker stretch of trees. Naruto glanced back once, meeting Kakashi's eye. For a moment, the boy's stormy gaze carried no fear, only fire. Kakashi nodded once, and they pressed forward. The deeper they pressed, the heavier the forest felt. The ground was slick with unnatural dampness, every step squelching like they were walking through a bog that shouldn't exist. Naruto's eyes narrowed. The trail's fresher here. Sasuke's reply came sharp and low. We're being watched. A second later, the air split. A chain whipped out from the tree line, barbed links glinting in the dim light. It shot straight for Naruto's throat. Clang! Naruto caught it on his blade just in time, the impact rattling his arms. Sasuke's blade flashed, severing the trailing links before they could wrap around him. Sakura slid into stance on the right, her feet light, blade lifted, scanning for the source. The forest erupted. Two figures landed in the clearing, cloaked in ragged black, their eyes gleaming with hunger. Each wore gauntlets ending in curved, poison claws, and a massive chain coiled between them like a serpent. The demon brothers, Kakashi murmured from the rear, his eye narrowing. One brother licked his claws, grinning with jagged teeth. Been a while since we had fresh hunter BLD. The other tugged the chain taut, barbs dripping with venom. The boss will be pleased when we bring him your corpses. Naruto shifted into his whirlpool stance, blade circling smoothly, storm energy crackling faintly in his eyes. Not today. Sasuke slid in beside him, black blade angled low, cold and sharp as shadow. Sakura's pulse hammered, but her grip tightened. The willow stance rooted her feet, her blade already weaving small, quick motions in the air. The demon brothers sneered, snapping the chain taut between them. Then they lunged. The chain whistled through the air, barbs gleaming as the demon brothers lunged from opposite sides. But Naruto was already moving. He surged forward in his whirlpool stance, blade sweeping in wide arcs that caught the chain and redirected its momentum, dragging one brother off balance. Sasuke slid in immediately, his interceptor stance snapping into place. The moment the first brother staggered, Sasuke's black blade flashed up, striking sharp and precise across the exposed gauntlet. Sparks burst as steel cracked. The demon howled, claw arms sagging uselessly. On the other side, the second brother snarled and whipped the chain around, trying to hook it toward Sakura. She was ready. Feet light, she bent with the motion, her blade darting in quick, relentless cuts. Willow stance flowed through her limbs, every strike small but sharp, battering the chain link by link until the momentum broke. The barbs missed her by inches, crashing into the dirt. Naruto seized the opening. He roared, blade slamming down in a heavy overhead strike that pinned the chain to the ground. Now. Sasuke was already there. He pivoted behind the staggered demon, blade slicing in a cold, perfect arc. The brother collapsed in a spray of black ichor. The second froze, eyes wide, his chain trapped under Naruto's crimson blade, his path blocked by Sakura's steady stance and Sasuke's shadow at his back. He barely had time to hiss before Sakura struck. Her blade flicked out, quick and sharp, cutting his throat in a spray of dark mist. Her face was pale, but her hand didn't shake. The forest went still. The chain fell slack. The demon brothers feared across the borderlands lay broken in the mud. Naruto exhaled, shoulders rising and falling, his storm still burning. Sasuke flicked ichor from his blade, calm but satisfied. Sakura tightened her grip, her heart hammering, but a small, fierce smile touched her lips. Behind them, Kakashi hadn't moved an inch. His bells jingled faintly as he folded his arms. They didn't even need me. The bodies of the demon brothers hissed as they hit the ground, their flesh dissolving into black smoke that curled up into the canopy. What remained were their weapons, the heavy-clawed gauntlets, still slick with venom, and the chain that clinked as it collapsed in the dirt. Kakashi stepped forward at last. He crouched, examining the gauntlets before lifting them carefully. His visible eye curved faintly in approval. "Not bad at all," he said, slipping the claws into a sealable pouch on his belt. "The mist will pay well for these. Demons or not, they were once theirs. Low-class nuke but still B-class." Naruto straightened, wiping ichor from his crimson blade. Barely B-class and they still carried weapons like that. Sasuke's eyes narrowed at the dissipating smoke. Means the one leading them is stronger. Sakura adjusted her grip on her willow blade, heart still racing from her kill, but she stood taller now. And smarter. Kakashi's voice dropped, serious again. "Exactly. This was just the welcome committee. If they were here, it means we're on the right trail." The air pressed heavier as they pushed forward, the unnatural dampness growing with every step. The path wound deeper into the island, trees closing in overhead, shadows stretching long. Every sign pointed to the same conclusion. The one responsible wasn't just another demon. It was a hunter who had fallen a nuke. And it was waiting. The trail led them deeper into the heart of the island, the air growing colder, wetter, every breath carrying the stench of rot. The silence broke at last, not with sound, but with sight. The trees ahead were wrong. Trunks blackened and warped, bark twisted into unnatural spirals. Roots clawed out of the ground, writhing like frozen serpents. And nailed to those roots, half a dozen villagers hung lifeless, their bodies pinned like trophies. Some were split open, their entrails strung along branches like grotesque streamers. Others dangled, drained, eyes staring blankly into the canopy. Sakura's hands shot to her mouth, bile rising in her throat. She turned away for a second, forcing her breathing steady before she could look again. "Don't falter. Don't freeze." Sasuke's eyes narrowed to cold slits, jaw tight, his black blade lifting almost unconsciously into his hand. Sadistic. Naruto froze mid-step. His hand clenched his crimson hilt so hard his knuckles went white. The blade began to hum, faint sparks crackling along its edge. His storm had risen again, unbidden, rage spilling over. His voice shook with fury. "I'll kill." A hand pressed against his shoulder. Sasuke stood beside him, gaze fixed ahead, calm but firm. "Not yet. Don't waste it." Naruto's breath caught, his eyes wide. The sparks along his blade flickered, then dimmed, fading back into silence. His grip loosened just enough for control to return. He gave a tight nod. Kakashi watched quietly from behind, his expression unreadable, though the bells at his hip gave a faint chime in the heavy air. He had seen enough to know this wasn't just cruelty. This was a message. The Nuke was close. And it wanted them to see. The mist thickened, rolling across the clearing like a living thing. The stagnant water at their boots rippled though no wind blew. From the haze came a voice, low and mocking. "So the core sends children after me." A shape emerged broad, towering, steel glinting taller than Naruto himself. The jagged sword rested on his shoulder as if it weighed nothing. His grin split wide, teeth sharp. Zabuza Momochi. The demon of the mist. Once a prodigy of the mist hunters, now his flesh bore the faint gray lines of corruption. His eyes glowed faintly, feral and hungry. Kakashi's single eye narrowed. Zabuza. The name hung heavy. Zabuza chuckled, tilting his head. Not many dare speak it anymore. His gaze swept over Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. Children. Brave, but doomed. Their fire will drown the same as the others. The water at their feet rippled wider, darkening. Naruto's jaw clenched, crimson hilt sparking in his hand, storm surging hot. Sasuke's hand pressed firm on his shoulder, steadying him. Their eyes met for a heartbeat control, not rage. Naruto exhaled, forcing the storm to dim. Then Kakashi moved. His gloved hand reached up, hooking under his forehead protector. Slowly, he lifted it, the cloth sliding away. Sakura's breath caught, eyes widening. Sasuke's brow furrowed, suspicion sharpening. Naruto froze mid-step. Beneath the headband was not an ordinary eye. A terrible glow pulsed jagged iris, veins black as ink clawing into the skin around it. The pupil twisted unnaturally, the faint air around it shimmering as if reality bent beneath its stare. Sakura staggered back, voice trembling. What is that?" Sasuke's jaw tightened, eyes narrowing. He'd expected Kakashi to hide something. But not this. Naruto's knuckles whitened on his hilt, torn between awe and unease. The eye pulsed once, casting a faint glow into the mist. Kakashi's voice was low, grim. "A curse I carry. A power I swore I'd only use if there was no other choice." Zabuza's laughter rolled out, booming across the clearing. "So it's true. The copy hunter damned himself. A demon's eye for a demon's world. I thought it was just rumor." He lowered his massive blade, the flat hissing against the waterlogged earth. "Good. This will be even more fun." Naruto took a step forward, storm flickering again. Kakashi's voice snapped like steel. "Control it. All of you. Remember your training. We fight together, or we die apart." The bells at his hip chimed softly, the cursed eye burning against the mist. The demon of the mist had revealed himself. And now, so had Kakashi. The mist pressed tighter, swallowing the clearing until only shadows remained. Zabuza dragged his jagged blade through the shallow water, the surface rippling unnaturally. The steel drank the moisture, streams of water snaking up its edge, coiling and twisting until the massive weapon throbbed with corrupted energy. The faint glow in Zabuza's eyes brightened, feral and hungry. "This sword has tasted more blood than your children have seen days alive. And now it sings for yours." Kakashi didn't flinch. His free hand slipped behind his back and drew steel, not the slim hunter blade he sometimes trained with, but a short, gleaming tanto. Its blade shimmered pale white, and as he raised it, light pulsed faintly along its edge. Naruto blinked, his storm flickering again. That's soul resonance, Sasuke finished, voice low, eyes narrowing in recognition. The tanto hummed with energy, not corrupted, not raging, steady, pure, like the echo of countless voices bound to the steel. Where Zabuza's sword swirled with water twisted by demonic will, Kakashi's tanto radiated calm defiance, light cutting against the mist. The two weapons pulsed in answer to each other. Corruption and clarity. Predator and shield. Zabuza tilted his head, jagged grin splitting wider. So you've got a cursed eye and a blessed blade. This is going to be interesting. Kakashi shifted his stance, tanto raised, cursed eye glowing faintly beneath his lifted headband. Team 7, hold formation. This resonance isn't just for show. The mist churned violently as Zabuza's laughter echoed, and the swamp water around them began to rise in jagged spirals, answering the hunger of his blade. For the first time, Kakashi's eye hardened, voice cold steel. This isn't training anymore. It's war. The clearing erupted as steel met steel, Zabuza's corrupted greatsword crashing against Kakashi's gleaming tanto, the clash sending a shockwave of water and light through the mist. The world shrank to two figures. Zabuza moved first, his massive blade tearing through the mist with a roar of steel and water. Each swing was vicious, heavy, brutal, the kind of strikes meant to split men in half, to leave nothing standing. His body flowed with the corruption in his sword, the water around him lashing with every motion like it obeyed him. But Kakashi was already there. His tanto flashed white, a gleam of soul energy against the gloom. Where Zabuza swung wide, Kakashi slid close, his parries delicate but exact, each movement flowing into the next. He turned death into near misses, redirecting power with the lightest touch. It was like watching a storm crash against stone, except the stone danced. Naruto's storm crackled faintly at his hilt, but he didn't move, eyes wide. He's not just fighting, he's flowing. Sasuke's gaze sharpened, watching every angle, every calculated parry. He'd never seen someone fight with such precision. Kakashi wasn't wasting an ounce of movement. Sakura's breath caught in her throat. The elegance of it struck her hardest. Every step, every twist of the wrist, was flawless like a dance, appealing and terrifying at once. Zabuza snarled, his swings coming faster, harder, the water around his blade surging into whips and spikes that lashed at Kakashi from every angle. But Kakashi was never there when they landed. His body flowed through openings, tanto flashing, strikes so quick they sang against Zabuza's greatsword like chimes in the mist. Elegant. Deadly. A ballerina with steel. Zabuza's grin widened even as sweat beaded his brow. You've still got it, copy hunter. But how long before that cursed eye eats you alive? Kakashi's tanto glowed brighter, his stance rooted but fluid. His voice was calm, steady, not a boast, but a vow. Long enough to end you. The clash of their blades sent another shockwave through the clearing, water exploding into spray, mist curling tighter around them. Team 7 stood frozen at the edge, witnessing the gulf between hunters and monsters and the thin, elegant line Kakashi walked between the two. For all of Kakashi's elegance, Zabuza's raw brutality broke through. The great sword came down, Kakashi slid inside the arc, tanto flashing white only for Zabuza's knee to slam into his chest. The impact cracked like a hammer on stone, sending Kakashi stumbling back into the rising water. Before he could recover, Zabuza's hands blurred in motion, corruption bending the stagnant pool beneath them. The liquid surged upward, snapping closed around Kakashi like a sphere of glass. A water prison. Kakashi's tanto flickered, soul energy straining against the prison's surface, but the corrupted water held tight, humming with Zabuza's strength. His single eye widened, teeth gritting. Not good. Zabuza grinned, jagged teeth gleaming through the mist. His left hand maintained the prison, claws sunk into the water's surface like a puppeteer's strings. With his right, he swept his sword out, and the stagnant pools around them rippled. Figures rose. 3, then 5, then 10. Water clones each bearing Zabuza's grin, each dragging a blade of liquid steel. They splashed into the clearing, advancing with slow, deliberate steps. "Let's see what the kiddies are worth," Zabuza growled. "Maybe I'll let them scream long enough for you to watch, copy hunter." The prison trembled as Kakashi slammed his glowing tanto against it, light flashing, but he couldn't break free. Not fast enough. Not alone. Naruto's blade sparked violently, storm howling in his chest. Like hell. Sasuke stepped forward, black blade steady, his stance sharp and coiled. "We hold formation." Sakura swallowed hard, willow blade trembling in her hands, but her feet slid into stance, light and ready. "We fight together." The clones closed in, their laughter echoing through the mist. Team 7's trial had begun. The first water clone lunged, blade raised high. Naruto met it head-on, his crimson hilt sparking as he slipped into his whirlpool stance. His strikes came in relentless arcs, each swing feeding the next. The clone staggered, and before it could recover, Naruto's storm surged forward one last slash, splitting it into a collapsing torrent. Another clone tried to flank. Sasuke was already there. His interceptor stance snapped into motion, every step measured, every cut precise. One feint, one twist, and his black blade carved through the clone's chest, dispersing it into spray. His eyes didn't even blink. 3 more closed on Sakura. She inhaled sharply, heart hammering, but her willow stance held. Feet light, she bent with their momentum, her blade darting in quick, small strikes. Slash. Step. Slash. Each cut chipped away until the clones lost their form. With a final flurry, she shredded them into puddles at her feet. The mist swirled with broken bodies of water, collapsing as fast as they came. Naruto slid to Sasuke's flank, the two of them cutting a clone apart between them. Their blades moved in rhythm, storm and shadow weaving seamlessly. Sakura flowed in behind them, her lighter strikes catching the ones they missed. Her breath came fast, but her eyes burned with focus. Within minutes, the clearing was filled only with the sound of water splashing back into the earth. The clones lay in pieces, dissolving into harmless puddles. Naruto grinned, storm sparking faintly. "That all you've got?" Sasuke lowered his blade, cold but satisfied. "Weak. For him." Sakura wiped her forehead, chest heaving, but her willow stance still held. "He underestimated us." Inside the prison, Kakashi's visible eye curved faintly. Despite the weight of water pressing against him, pride flickered in that single glance. "They've grown." But Zabuza only laughed, deep and cruel, his jagged grin splitting wider. "Not bad. But children playing in puddles doesn't make them hunters." His grip tightened on the prison, the water surging darker around Kakashi. Naruto's chest heaved, every breath hot, ragged, his storm begging to be unleashed. The images wouldn't leave his mind, the villagers strung up like meat, their eyes hollow. He saw their faces, and then he saw hers. Rumi. Her smile. Her laughter. Her warmth. And then he imagined her body nailed to those twisted roots. The storm inside him snapped. His crimson blade hummed violently, sparks ripping through the mist. Lightning crawled up the steel, lashing outward in jagged arcs. Wind circled around it, feeding the storm, until the weapon howled with raw fury, a perfect storm of steel, thunder, and soul. The ground at his feet quaked. Sakura staggered back, eyes wide. Naruto. Even Sasuke's breath caught, the hairs on his arms rising from the static. The clones dissolved into puddles instantly, unable to hold form in the gale of his power. Zabuza's jagged grin froze. The laughter died in his throat as his corrupted eyes widened, taking in the boy before him. "That's impossible." soul resonance. At his age, his grip faltered slightly on the prison, the water trembling. Only Jonin can. Kakashi's tanto flickered inside the prison, his cursed eye burning brighter. A faint smile pulled at his mask. You underestimated him. Naruto raised his blade, lightning snapping across the clearing, wind howling at his back. His voice shook with fury but rang clear. You'll pay for every life you took. The storm roared, and for the first time the demon of the mist stepped back. Naruto's grip tightened on the crimson hilt, the storm wrapping around him until every strand of his hair lifted, every muscle thrumming. With raw power. The blade's hum rose to a piercing note, and his voice thundered through the mist. Iato Hunter's last dance. The world blurred. Electricity surged over his body, covering him like a second skin. His legs coiled, then released. Naruto vanished in a crack of thunder. To the naked eye, he was gone, nothing but a streak of light tearing across the clearing. Zabuza barely had time to raise his massive blade. Steel shrieked as Naruto struck, sparks bursting like fireworks. His speed was unnatural, a blur even Kakashi's cursed eye strained to track. But he wasn't alone. Sasuke was their black blade intercepting, his interceptor stance flowing in perfect tandem. He cut low, quick, each strike forcing Zabuza back, weaving traps that caught him no matter which way he tried to slip. If Naruto was lightning, Sasuke was the shadow it cast, inescapable, inevitable. Sakura moved last. Her hands were steady as she hurled a glass vial, its contents shattering into the water at Zabuza's feet. Wisteria oil spread instantly, its sharp, bitter scent filling the clearing. The swamp that fed Zabuza's strength now turned against him. Any water he pulled would poison him instead. Zabuza's grin faltered, jagged teeth bared in something closer to rage than amusement. His sword swung harder, faster, water still swirling but thinner, weaker. Sparks showered as Naruto and Sasuke pressed him, every strike driving him closer to the poisoned swamp. Inside the prison, Kakashi's cursed eye burned brighter, pride cutting through the strain. They're not just children anymore. For the first time, the demon of the mist found himself on the back foot, hunted. Naruto's storm raged, Sasuke's shadows pressed, and Sakura's trap spread poison through the swamp. Zabuza's sneer cracked, the weight of their teamwork bearing down on him. His grip faltered on the water prison, and in that instant, Kakashi was free. The cursed eye burned like fire in his skull, veins black against his skin. He lunged, tanto gleaming white, a perfect arc of light cutting through the mist. Zabuza barely twisted away, but not fast enough. Steel bit into his ribs, carving deep, BLD hissing as it touched the poisoned swamp water. Zabuza staggered, breath tearing ragged, one hand clutching the wound. For the first time, the demon of the mist looked mortal. Naruto and Sasuke closed in to finish it when a sharp crack split the clearing. Ice. A flash of frost surged between them, jagged crystals exploding outward. Naruto's storm hissed against the sudden cold, arcs of lightning snapping uselessly over the frozen wall. Sasuke snarled, forced back, blade scraping frost. Sakura shielded her eyes from the blast of freezing mist. Through the haze stepped a figure, a slender form, masked, its eyes unreadable behind the porcelain. In its hands, ice formed like silk threads, binding and hardening over Zabuza's wound, sealing the bleeding. Enough. The voice was soft, but it cut like glass. Before Team 7 could react, the figure lifted Zabuza as though he weighed nothing, ice encasing his body like armor. With one last glance, the masked demon leapt into the mist, vanishing into the forest with the wounded hunter. Silence fell, broken only by the dripping of melted ice. Naruto snarled, storm still raging, ready to pursue. Sasuke matched his step, blade rising. Sakura too tensed, fire in her eyes. Wait. Kakashi staggered forward, dropping to one knee. His tanto clattered into the mud. His cursed eye flickered violently, veins surging black across his temple. The prison strain and the eye's curse had pushed him too far. Naruto's storm sputtered, his vision spinning. His knees buckled, his blade plunging into the mud for support. The lightning around him flickered once, twice, then died. Sakura gasped, reaching toward him. Naruto! But he collapsed, falling beside Kakashi, both of them broken by the fight's toll. Sasuke stood over them, black blade still steady, his breath sharp as his eyes scanned the mist. He scowled. They had been close, too close. And yet, the demon of the mist had slipped away. The mist thinned as if the forest itself exhaled, the weight of Zabuza's presence finally gone. What remained was silence broken only by the ragged breathing of Team 7. Sakura dropped to her knees between Kakashi and Naruto, her hands trembling as she checked their pulses. Relief washed over her when she felt both, steady but weak. "They're alive," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Sasuke slid his black blade back into its sheath with a sharp click. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes never left the dark tree-line. "They'll be back." That masked one, they weren't just a bodyguard. They knew exactly when to move. Naruto stirred faintly, a groan slipping from his throat. He tried to push himself up, but his body refused. His storm had burned through everything: anger, grief, willpower, leaving only emptiness. His eyes cracked open just long enough to see Sakura's face hovering over him, relief softening her features. He managed a faint, broken smile. "Rumi, I'll keep fighting." Then he slipped back into unconsciousness. Villagers crept from the cabin where they'd been hidden, led by Tazuna, who still smelled of stale alcohol but whose face was pale with shock. Inari clutched his mother's hand, eyes wide as he looked at the collapsed hunters who had fought to keep them safe. Sakura called out hoarsely, "We need shelter now. They need to rest, or they won't last the night." Tazuna snapped awake, his voice steadier than expected. "There's an old house, stronger than the cabins. We can carry them there." Sasuke bent, hooking Kakashi's arm over his shoulder despite the older man's dead weight. He gritted his teeth but said nothing. Sakura supported Naruto, Inari rushing forward to help her despite his small size. The walk back was slow, every step heavy with exhaustion. When they finally reached the sturdier cabin, Sakura eased Naruto onto a mat while Sasuke lowered Kakashi carefully beside him. The room filled with silence again, broken only by the faint crackle of a lantern. Sasuke stood in the doorway, his arms crossed, eyes fixed on the mist that still clung outside. His voice was low, tight. "Next time, I won't let him escape." Sakura sat by Naruto's side, her hands clenched in her lap, the image of the ice mask burned into her mind. She whispered to herself, almost like a vow, "We'll be ready." The cabin was quiet save for the rasp of strained breathing. Kakashi lay on one mat, Naruto on another, their chests rising and falling in uneven rhythm. Sakura had stayed between them for hours, watching, whispering silent prayers that neither man could hear. At last, Kakashi stirred. His single uncovered eye blinked open, heavy with exhaustion but sharp enough to scan the room. He groaned faintly, shifting to sit upright, though the strain showed in his face. Sasuke glanced back from where he stood at the doorway, arms folded. Finally awake. Kakashi exhaled, his hand running down his mask. "Barely. That fight cost me more than I wanted." His gaze dropped to the Tonto, lying by his side, still faintly glowing with soul energy. He touched the hilt gently, almost reverently, before letting it rest. Sakura leaned in. "Sensei, Naruto hasn't moved in hours. Is he going to be okay?" Kakashi studied the boy's face. Naruto's body twitched faintly, as if lightning still burned through his veins even in unconsciousness. But his breathing was steady, strong. "He'll recover." Pushing his resonance that far it tore him apart. "But he'll survive." Sasuke turned fully now, his voice cool but firm. "And Zabuza?" Kakashi's eye hardened. "That strike I landed with the white blade, it won't heal quickly. Soul energy wounds don't close like flesh." Even with that masked demon freezing the injury, it's only buying him time. He won't be able to teleport away, not yet. Sakura swallowed, her shoulders tightening. So he's trapped here. For a little while. Kakashi's tone was grave. By dusk tomorrow, they'll be strong enough to flee. Which means, he looked at all three of them, letting the weight settle. We have until dawn. Tomorrow morning, we face Sabuza again. And this time, we finish it. Silence filled the cabin. The lantern flickered, shadows trembling across the walls. Sasuke's hand rested lightly on his black blade. Good. Sakura clenched her willow sword tighter, her eyes sharp with something that hadn't been there before. Then we'll be ready. Naruto, still unconscious, shifted on the mat. A faint spark flickered at his fingertips, as though his storm was answering the vow even in sleep. Outside, the mist clung to the island, thick and waiting. The lantern light flickered low, casting long shadows over the cabin walls. Kakashi leaned against the wall, exhaustion pulling at his shoulders, but his gaze was sharp as ever. Sasuke broke the silence. His voice was low, almost flat, but the tension in it was clear. That eye. What is it? Kakashi didn't answer immediately. His hand rose to the headband still pushed up, fingertips brushing the cursed eye. The veins around it pulsed faintly, black and unnatural. He sighed. It's not a gift I'm proud of, he said finally. But it saved me once. Sakura leaned forward, curiosity and fear mixing on her face. Kakashi's voice was quiet, steady. The Uchiha clan has always been tied to these eyes. Not the Sharingan, the curse that sometimes follows when their blood brushes too close to corruption. A demon's poison can twist soul and flesh into something else. Sasuke's jaw tightened, eyes narrowing. You're saying? Kakashi nodded slowly. I fought beside an Uchiha long ago. A friend. He was struck with a poison meant to turn him, to drag him under. Even as it ate at him, he stayed himself long enough to save me. And before he fully fell he gave me this eye. A piece of him, so that I could keep fighting. The cabin fell silent. Sakura's hand tightened over her knees, her throat dry. So that's why you... Kakashi lowered the headband again, covering the cursed glow, his single visible eye softening with something like sorrow. Every time I use it, I feel him there. Not whole. Not human. But enough to remind me what I fight for. Sasuke's fists clenched at his sides, his shadowed eyes burning. A mixture of anger and something deeper flickered their grief, maybe, or fear of what it meant for his clan. He turned away without another word, staring out the window into the mist. Kakashi let the silence linger. Then his voice, quiet but firm, cut through it. That's why you three have to be ready tomorrow. Power has a cost. Don't carry more than you can bear. Naruto stirred faintly on the mat, a spark flickering at his fingertips as though even in dreams he'd heard. The cabin was hushed, firelight flickering soft and thin. Kakashi's voice had barely faded when Sasuke turned, his eyes sharp, dark, searching. You're saying that I was from my clan. Then tell me what exactly is it? Kakashi's gaze lingered on him. For a long moment, he seemed to weigh the choice, then finally exhaled. Only a few Uchiha ever carried this curse. The stories say it goes back centuries back to an ancestor who was violated by a demon. Her children inherited something unnatural. A spark. Not Sharingan, not human. Something between. Sakura's breath caught. That's... Kakashi raised a hand, stopping her. His voice stayed even, but the weight in it was undeniable. The eye is power. It lets its bearer see into the soul, cut through deception, even strike with a force that wounds deeper than flesh. But to activate it means letting a demon's blood answer. It always comes at a cost. The longer you use it, the closer you stand to losing yourself. Sasuke's hands curled into fists. His mind wasn't here in the cabin anymore. He was back in a hallway, a child staring at BLD-streaked walls. He remembered his brother's eyes burning, unnatural, twisted. Eyes that had looked down at him before slaughtering everything he loved. Itachi's eyes. The cursed eyes. Sasuke's throat tightened, his voice a low rasp. He had them. My brother. Those eyes. Before he murdered the clan. Sakura's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth. Kakashi's visible eyes softened, but he didn't deny it. Not every Uchiha could bear the curse without falling. Some tried to control it, most failed. Your brother, he stopped, his voice catching faintly under the mask, then steadied. Your brother's path was his own. But yes. He carried the curse. The lantern crackled. Naruto stirred in his sleep, sparks flickering faintly at his fingers as though he, too, heard the heaviness in their words. Sasuke turned away, his jaw tight, shadow cutting across his face. His silence said more than words ever could. The cabin was quiet, broken only by the faint rasp of Kakashi's breathing and the crackle of the lantern. Naruto still lay unconscious on the mat, storm sparks flickering faintly at his fingertips even in sleep. Then a vibration buzzed against the wooden floor. His phone lit up. Incoming call, Rumi. Sasuke narrowed his eyes, picked it up, and answered. On the screen appeared a appealing purple-haired girl, her expression immediately softening. Naruto, but when she realized who was holding the phone, her eyes widened. Who are you? Where's Naruto? Before Sasuke could answer, a bubbly voice shrieked in the background. Oh my god, Mira, I found your type. Another girl darted into view, snatching the phone. She had soft pink hair and a calm, steady air about her until she saw Sasuke's face staring back in confusion. Her cheeks flamed. I thought you meant a picture, Zoe, not someone live on the phone. She shoved at the girl off screen, who was still laughing. Rumi yanked the phone out of her hands, exasperated. Give me that. This is my phone. She turned back to the screen, cheeks slightly pink. Sorry about them. I'm Rumi. Please, where's Naruto? Sasuke's voice was even, calm, though a faint smile tugged at his lips. I'm Sasuke. Naruto's teammate. We're on a mission. I don't know why he brought his phone, it's against regulations. Rumi froze, her blush deepening. I told him he better bring it. Please don't get him in trouble. Sasuke studied her for a moment, then nodded. His smile was subtle, but it was there. I won't. Relief washed over her face, her lips curling into a grateful smile that seemed to warm the whole screen. Thanks. Tell him to be safe, okay? She hung up before Zoe could butt in again. The phone went dark in Sasuke's hand. For a moment, he stood in silence, staring at his reflection in the blank screen. Then he let out a soft chuckle and looked down at Naruto, unconscious beside him. So this is who you fight for, I see. He set the phone gently by his teammate's side before turning back toward the mist-laced window, his heart still hammering. Dawn broke gray and heavy, the mist rolling thick over the island. Despite the bruises, the cuts, and the exhaustion of yesterday's battle, Team 7 rose sharper, steadier. Their sleep had not been deep, but it had been enough. Kakashi tightened the strap on his tanto, his visible eye glancing once at Naruto and Sasuke. Both boys stood ready, blades sheathed but their stances already taut with focus. Even Sakura looked calmer, her willow sword firm in her grip. When they stepped outside, the air bit cold. Frost clung to the ground, glimmering faintly in the dim light. An unmistakable sign, ice. They followed the trail, winding through the trees until the forest thinned. The sound of running water grew louder, echoing strangely in the mist. At last, the trees opened into a wide gorge spanned by an unfinished bridge, stone pylons rising like skeletons from the fog. The ice trail led straight onto it. Kakashi paused at the bridge's edge, his tanto glowing faintly at his side. This is it. He's here. The villagers trailed behind, huddled and frightened, guided by Tazuna. Their faces were pale from the frostbite in the air, eyes darting nervously into the mist. Sakura turned to them, her voice steady despite her own nerves. Stay here. I'll protect you. No matter what. The old man nodded, his hand trembling as it rested on his grandson's shoulder. We're counting on you. Naruto and Sasuke exchanged a glance. No words were needed. The three of them stepped onto the bridge, the fog swallowing their figures. The stone beneath their boots was slick with frost, their breath misting in the air. Somewhere within the mist, a jagged laugh echoed. Cold. Familiar. Zabuza. And beside it, faint and sharp, the ringing sound of ice cracking. The mist thickened as they crossed deeper onto the bridge, so heavy it seemed to press on their lungs. The frost crunched underfoot, coating the stone in a thin sheet of ice. Then footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. A towering shadow emerged through the fog, the jagged edge of a sword glinting first, then the broad figure that carried it. Zabuza's jagged grin split wide, his eyes glowing faintly with corruption. Well, well. You came right to me. His voice was low, cruel, dripping with amusement. Good. Saves me the trouble of hunting you down. I'm going to enjoy killing you. He rested the massive blade across his shoulder, the weight of it nothing to him. Behind him, another shape glided into view, slender, masked, the mist curling tighter around their form. Frost spread at each of their steps, coating the bridge in thin layers of ice. Zabuza's grin widened as he jerked his chin toward the masked figure. Haku. Take the recruits. His corrupted eyes burned into Kakashi. The Jonin is mine. Haku's masked gaze tilted toward Naruto and Sasuke, voice soft but chilling. As you command, Zabuza-sama. The frost beneath their boots thickened instantly, jagged patterns webbing out across the bridge, forming the beginnings of a cage. Kakashi's tanto hummed white as he slid into stance, his cursed eye glowing faintly beneath the headband. His voice was calm, steady. Team 7. Hold your ground. Naruto's storm crackled faintly, sparks dancing along his crimson blade. Sasuke's hand slid to his black hilt, his stance sharp, cold. Sakura turned back once toward the villagers in the distance, then raised her willow sword, standing firm as the frost crept closer. The mist closed in, and the bridge became their battlefield. The frost spread fast, sealing off the far end of the bridge in jagged sheets. Haku lifted one pale hand, and in a flash the air filled with sharp, glimmering shards of ice that rose into perfect formation. Mirrors. They snapped into place around Naruto and Sasuke, walls of reflective frost that shimmered in the mist. Their own faces stared back at them, distorted, fractured, multiplied 100 times. Sakura cried out, stepping forward, but the mirrors slammed shut before she could reach them. She skidded to a halt, willow blade clenched tight, forced to hold the line with the villagers at her back. Haku's masked face appeared in one of the mirrors, then in another, then in all of them. Their voice rang out, soft and echoing from every angle. You two won't escape. This cage is mine. Naruto snarled, storm snapping to life around him, crimson blade humming with static. We'll break it wide open. Sasuke slid into his interceptor stance, black blade angled low, eyes sharp as ice. Stay sharp. He's fast. Outside the cage, Zabuza chuckled, his jagged grin cutting through the mist. He hefted his massive blade, eyes locking on Kakashi. Your brats will die in pieces, and you'll watch. After I take your head. Kakashi's tanto glowed white, his stance poised and elegant, his cursed eye burning beneath the headband. His voice was quiet, deadly calm. You'll find I don't break that easily. The bridge split into two battles. The mist thickened, the frost spread, and the fight began. The mirrors gleamed, cold and merciless. Haku's form blurred between them, a phantom of frost. In a blink she was behind them, ice blade slashing toward Naruto's neck. Steel met steel with a shriek. Naruto's crimson blade caught the strike just in time, sparks dancing against frost. Sasuke twisted, black steel intercepting the follow-up slash aimed for Naruto's ribs. Their blades moved like instinct, like they'd been training for this moment all along. Haku vanished into another mirror, then another. She struck again, and again faster, sharper, every movement almost invisible. Yet every time, crimson and black steel rose to meet her. Naruto's breath came ragged, his storm snapping along his blade. She's fast, too fast. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, his movements clean, deliberate. Then we'll be faster. Haku's strike slowed, not because she was tired but because she realized, brute speed wasn't enough. Her voice echoed, low behind the mask. Impressive. But let's see you stop this. The mirrors glowed, then shattered into a storm of shimmering shards. Not breaking apart, but multiplying. From every surface, Haku unleashed a barrage of ice needles. They streaked through the air like 1,000 silver bolts, a rain of death. Naruto roared, storm bursting from him. His blade resonated, lightning crawling the steel until it howled. He swung wide, arcs of thunder wrapping around him like a shield. The needles struck and shattered, sparks exploding into the cage. But Sasuke couldn't dodge them all. 3 needles sank into his side, another slicing across his arm. He hissed, his blade still firm, but his breath came sharp. Naruto saw the BLD spray, saw Sasuke stagger. Rage snapped hot in his chest. DMN it, don't you touch him. His storm flared brighter, arcs snapping across every mirror at once. For the first time, Haku's calm cracked. Her reflection tilted, her masked eyes narrowing. She whispered almost inaudibly. What are you? Steel clashed like thunder outside the ice cage. Kakashi met Zabuza's corrupted greatsword head-on, his white tanto glowing brighter with every strike. But this time there was no elegance, no graceful dance. His blows were relentless, furious, each one meant to carve straight through. Zabuza staggered back under the assault, his jagged grin faltering. The tanto cut faster than he expected, arcs of white light tracing every swing. Kakashi's cursed eye blazed, veins crawling across his temple as he pressed harder and harder, each strike forcing the mist demon to retreat another step. Zabuza's laugh broke, replaced by a snarl. He's not holding back anymore. The greatsword swung wide, a tidal slash of water surging with it. Kakashi slipped inside the arc and drove his tanto across Zabuza's chest, sparks hissing against steel and flesh alike. Zabuza hissed, dragging the sword back, but his shoulders heaved heavier now. His corrupted eyes flickered, the first tremor of unease crawling into them. You fight like a man possessed, he spat, teeth bared. Kakashi's voice was low, cold. You've taken enough lives. This ends here. The bridge trembled as they clashed again, Zabuza finally realizing this was no dance, no measured duel. Kakashi was fighting to kill. The mist rolled heavy across the bridge, curling like hungry fingers. From its edges came snarls, low and guttural, followed by shapes slinking into view, smaller demons, gaunt and ravenous, their yellow eyes burning with hunger. Claws scraped against stone as they crept closer, tongues lashing, mouths wide with jagged teeth. The villagers shrank back in terror. Mothers pulled children close, men clutched useless tools, all of them pale with fear. Sakura stepped forward. Alone. Her willow blade gleamed faintly in the frostbitten light. She inhaled, set her stance, and raised her weapon. She was shaking already, BLD from her earlier wound still wet, her hands trembling, but she didn't falter. You'll have to go through me, she whispered, voice breaking but steady enough. The first demon lunged. She pivoted aside, thrusting quick and sharp, the blade sinking into its chest. It collapsed into smoke, but 2 more rushed in behind it. Sakura spun, sprinkling wisteria powder in an arc that burned into their skin, buying her a heartbeat. She struck again, short jabs, quick slices. One staggered, the other fell. Her lungs burned, every breath hot knives in her chest. Her arms ached, her calves trembled, but she didn't stop. One more strike. One more dodge. Keep going. The demons pressed harder, their claws flashing. One raked across her thigh, BLD splattering the stone. Pain screamed up her leg, but she bit down hard, twisting her blade into its throat. Another lunged low. She leapt back, blade darting in a flurry of cuts, driving it into smoke. Behind her, the villagers watched, stunned. Tsunami held Inari against her, shielding his eyes, but she couldn't stop looking at Sakura's small frame darting, twisting, striking. "She's just a child," she whispered, her voice breaking. "She's fighting for us." Tezuna's hands clenched the railing so hard his knuckles blanched. The stench of ichor and BLD filled his nose, but his drunken haze had burned away. All he could see was the girl bleeding, battered, but standing firm. "She's still going," he muttered, half in awe, half in shame. The other villagers murmured in disbelief. "She doesn't stop. She's smaller than my boy and she's holding them back. Why are we hiding, while she—" Inari dared to peek from his mother's grip. His wide eyes filled with tears, but not just of fear. He saw Sakura, her limbs shaking, sweat strkng her face, her sword flashing in quick bursts of light, and something seared into him. A memory he would never forget, a girl barely older than him, bloodied and broken, refusing to fall while monsters closed in. The demons circled, snarling, their numbers dwindling but still relentless. They came in a pack, this time 4 at once. Claws raked, jaws snapped. Sakura planted her feet. She wasn't Sasuke, with his deadly precision. She wasn't Naruto, with his storming power. But she was Sakura Haruno. Her limbs shook like branches in a storm, her body screamed to collapse, but her roots dug deep. A tree against the gale. Her blade flickered in jabs and cuts, light and fast. Slash, dodge, stab, parry. She moved like wind through leaves, breaking one demon, then another, then another. Her BLD ran freely now, but her stance didn't break. And the villagers saw her not as a frail girl, but as a hunter. Hope sparked in their eyes, fragile but burning. She gritted her teeth, chest heaving, blade trembling, but she raised it again. No matter how hard the wind howled, no matter how many demons came, Sakura would not fall. Not while they were watching. Not while they needed her. Inside the cage of mirrors, the fight had become suffocating. Naruto's storm flared, but every swing of his crimson blade came slower, heavier. His breath rasped, sweat dripping down his temple. It, she's too fast. Sasuke's eyes tracked every flicker of Haku's masked figure as she darted from mirror to mirror. He could see Naruto faltering. He could hear the echoes of steel against frost. And something inside him tightened like a vice. I can't let him fall. I can't let them fall. Not again. The memory rose unbidden. His brother, Itachi, standing in a hall painted with BLD. Their parents sprawled lifeless, the clan broken, the sword in his brother's hand gleaming wet. Itachi's face calm, cold until he smiled. That smile carved itself into Sasuke's mind like a brand. BLD on his lips. BLD on his blade. Never again. Never again. Something inside him snapped. The world slowed. The mirrors no longer blurred with Haku's speed, they gleamed clear, every motion stretched out, every flicker of her masked form visible. His blade rose without thought, intercepting her next strike with a sharp clang. Sasuke's chest heaved, his teeth bared. His vision burned, heat tearing through his skull. He blinked once and the mirror reflected his eyes back at him. Not the black eyes he'd always known. Eyes of red. Red with Tomo circling, sharp and unnatural. Eyes cursed, yet powerful. The Sharingan. Haku staggered inside the mirror, her voice sharp with shock despite her mask. Those eyes. Naruto, still gasping for breath, glanced at Sasuke and froze. His storm sputtered, replaced by awe and something like fear. Sasuke, your eyes. Sasuke didn't answer. His grip tightened on the black hilt, his new eyes burning as the mirrors around him gleamed like targets. He saw everything. Every angle. Every weakness. And for the first time, Haku realized she was no longer the one trapped in the cage. The mirrors blazed with light, Haku's form darting faster and faster, a blur of frost and steel. But Sasuke's new eyes tracked every motion, every faint shift. The Sharingan spun, each tomo burning like a brand, and the world slowed to his vision. Naruto, storm rekindled, roared back to life at his side. His crimson blade sang with lightning, arcs snapping across the cage. Together, storm and shadow deflected every needle, every slash. For a heartbeat, the tide turned. Haku's voice cracked from the mirrors. Impossible. But in the flurry of strikes, Sasuke saw it. Through the haze of sparks and shards, his eyes picked out the faintest shift of blur strkng toward Naruto's blind side, too fast, too close. Naruto. He didn't think. He moved. Sasuke's body blurred, his black blade clashing against frost in a desperate block, but the strike pierced through. The ice blade sank deep into his chest, ripping the air from his lungs. Naruto's storm shattered. His eyes went wide, the sound of the blade hitting flesh louder than thunder. No. Sasuke staggered, his knees buckling, blood spilling hot and dark across the frost. His black blade slipped from his grip, clattering against stone. But his lips curved faintly, just enough for a smile. He turned his head toward Naruto, crimson eyes dimming but still alive with fire. His voice rasped, weak but sure. I may never kill him. But this is better. Naruto's storm sparked wildly, tears blurring his vision. Sasuke, don't you dare. Sasuke's smile lingered as his body sagged, heavy, his last strength fading. Better to save my friend. My first friend. His eyes closed. The world slipped into darkness. The last thing he saw was Naruto's face streaked with tears, storm crackling violently around him as Naruto bent low and whispered through gritted teeth, his voice breaking with rage and grief. I swear it, I will avenge you. The mirrors shuddered, and the storm howled. Naruto's breath tore ragged, his chest convulsing as he stared at the boy lying limp in a pool of blood. Sasuke. His rival. His equal. His first friend. And he was slipping away right before his eyes. Something inside Naruto cracked. Why? Why couldn't he protect his sister? His father? His mother? Why couldn't he stop this, even now? Why do they keep dying? Why do I keep failing? His vision blurred, the world shaking, twisting. Haku's mocking voice slithered from the mirrors. One more to kill, I wonder why he did that. All that sacrifice, and you'll die too. But then Haku's voice faltered. Naruto lifted his head. His eyes glowed, bloodshot to the point of breaking, veins bulging across his face. Rage burned so violently that it drowned thought, drowned grief, leaving only one thing, the need to kill the demon before him. He didn't feel his body anymore. Didn't feel the pain in his lungs, the ache in his limbs. Only the storm. Wind howled first, coiling tight around him, dragging water up from the bridge's surface into spiraling waves. The air thickened, pulling in harder, faster, until the gale roared like a beast. Lightning ripped across his skin, arcing over his crimson blade, coursing across his arms and chest until he glowed like a figure of living thunder. The hurricane burst outward, a towering vortex of wind, water, and lightning. The mirrors cracked then shattered all at once, shards exploding like glass. Haku was flung backward, slammed into the bridge so hard the stone cracked beneath her. Her mask twisted, her breath ragged, eyes wide as she pushed herself up, trembling. This wasn't the same boy. Naruto stood in the center of the maelstrom, his hair whipped violently by the storm, his blade glowing so bright it was painful to look at. His body shook with power, eyes burning with raw, bloody rage. He didn't know where he was anymore. All he knew was there was a demon in front of him. And he was going to kill it. Steel shrieked against steel as Kakashi and Zabuza clashed again, sparks flying in the mist. Kakashi's tanto glowed bright, every strike forcing the mist demon back, but Zabuza's brute strength refused to give ground. Their blades locked, faces inches apart, eyes burning with hatred. Then the mist shifted suddenly, violently. A body crashed across the stone, skidding to Zabuza's feet. Haku. Zabuza's voice cracked sharp, almost disbelieving. He looked down to see his masked partner coughing BLD, their body trembling, armor of frost shattered across their chest. Haku tried to rise, but their hand only lifted weakly, fingers shaking as it pointed past the broken mirrors. Zabuza followed the gesture. The mist itself seemed to part. Naruto stepped forward, calm, terrible, and unstoppable. The storm surrounded him like a cloak of living fury, wind howling, water curling up into spiraling streams, lightning dancing across his body in jagged arcs. His crimson blade hummed so bright it pulsed like a beacon, each step echoing like a drumbeat against the bridge. His eyes were bloodshot, veins crawling red, his face twisted with rage so raw it didn't look human anymore. He walked slowly, deliberately, every motion like the storm itself was carrying him. Haku's voice rasped, faltering under the mask. He's not the same, he's a monster. For the first time, Zabuza's jagged grin faltered. The mist demon's corrupted eyes narrowed, not with hunger, but with unease. Kakashi glanced sidelong at his student, his cursed eye flaring as he took in the sight. His tanto lowered just slightly. His voice dropped to a whisper only he could hear. Naruto. The storm roared louder, shattering the last traces of mist. And Naruto kept walking. Haku staggered to her feet, chest heaving, shards of broken ice still falling around her. Her mask was cracked, her eyes wide with something she had never felt before, fear. Naruto moved. The storm flared as he charged, wind and lightning exploding with each step. Haku threw her hands up, summoning spears of ice, volleys of frozen needles, blades sharp enough to cleave stone. They screamed through the air toward him. But Naruto didn't stop. Every strike glanced away, lightning snapping across his blade as he cut through them like paper. Spears shattered, needles hissed into smoke, ice walls broke apart as if they were nothing. Stay back. Haku gasped, her voice cracking beneath her mask. She flickered between mirrors, her body vanishing and reappearing in streaks of frost. Teleporting, fleeing. But the storm followed. No matter how fast she moved, Naruto was faster, his storm bending around her, dragging her back into his orbit. She leapt again, vanished, reappeared. And then she was caught. Naruto's hand clamped down on her cloak, lightning searing across the fabric. With a savage roar, he yanked her from the air and slammed her down onto the stone bridge. The ground cracked beneath the impact, spiderweb fissures shooting out as Haku's body convulsed from the blow. Her mask shattered completely, falling away in jagged pieces. Her face was revealed young, fragile, human. But Naruto's eyes didn't see a child. They only saw a demon. The storm screamed louder as Naruto lifted his blade, lightning curling down its crimson edge. His bloody eyes burned with one promised death. Naruto loomed over Haku, his storm raging, his blade raised high for the killing blow. Haku. Zabuza's voice tore across the bridge, harsh and guttural. He surged forward, his monstrous cleaver dragging behind him, water rising at his command. His corrupted eye pulsed with fury, his aura twisting the mist into a suffocating shroud. He closed the distance in a single bound, his blade coming down to cleave Naruto apart. But steel met steel before it could land. Clang! Kakashi was there, his white tanto blazing with soul energy, locking Zabuza's massive sword in place. His feet dug into the stone, the force of the strike sending cracks across the bridge. Lightning sparked off both blades as their auras clashed Zabuza's storm of corruption against Kakashi's precise, flowing strikes. "You won't touch him," Kakashi said coldly, "eye blazing. Not while I'm here." Naruto didn't even look back. His storm was deafening, his focus unbroken. His grip tightened on Haku's cloak as she writhed beneath him, her eyes wide, terrified. Zabuza snarled, straining against Kakashi's blade. "Haku!" But Kakashi's tanto pushed him back, steel shrieking as sparks flew. He locked Zabuza in place, forcing him to fight for every inch. Naruto's blade lifted higher, lightning crawling down its edge, the storm screaming for BLD. And Haku's voice, soft, almost childlike beneath the mask shards, whispered up at him. "Please kill me if you must. But don't hate him." Naruto's bloody eyes burned. His storm howled. Naruto's grip tightened. His storm shrieked around him, water and lightning tearing at the bridge. Haku's voice was soft, fragile, almost human, "Please kill me if you must." Naruto's eyes blazed, bloody veins crawling like cracks in porcelain. For a single breath, there was silence. Then his crimson blade flashed. It was quick. Clean. Mercy. The storm flared once, then swallowed Haku whole. Her body dissolved into mist and ice, scattering into the wind. No scream, no struggle, just silence. Naruto rose slowly, his blade dripping with frost and BLD, his storm still circling him like a living beast. He turned, his bloody eyes locking on Zabuza. And for the first time, the demon of the mist trembled. "You," Zabuza rasped, voice faltering as the storm pressed against him like a crushing weight. His grip on the cleaver wavered. For all his strength, for all his slaughter, the boy standing before him was something else entirely, rage and grief given form. Naruto's storm surged forward, his steps heavy, unrelenting. Zabuza bared his teeth, forcing his shaking hands to raise his sword. But he never saw Kakashi. In a blur of silver and white, Kakashi slipped past his guard. His tanto, glowing with pure soul energy, slid cleanly into Zabuza's side, piercing through flesh and corruption alike. Zabuza choked, BLD spraying from his mouth as his cleaver slipped from his grip. His knees buckled, the weight of him slamming against Kakashi's shoulder. His corrupted eye flickered, its monstrous glow dimming. Kakashi's voice was low, merciless. "You should have stayed in the shadows." Naruto's storm hissed, surrounding them both, as Zabuza staggered on the edge of death. Zabuza's massive body hit the bridge with a heavy thud. His cleaver clattered against stone, the mist rolling away as if even it no longer wished to linger. His corrupted eye dimmed to nothing, leaving him just a man broken, bloodied, and unredeemed. No pride in his death. No redemption. Just silence. Naruto's storm raged a moment longer, trembling and wild, before the weight of it all pressed down on him. His blade lowered, the lightning sputtering out. His arms shook violently, his chest heaving as his knees buckled. The wind stilled. Then the storm collapsed. Naruto's body swayed and fell, but Kakashi was there, catching him before he hit the ground. The boy's head rested against his Jonin's shoulder, BLD dripping from the corner of his mouth, his whole body trembling from exhaustion and grief. "Kakashi-sensei," his voice rasped, hoarse, broken. His eyes fluttered, still faintly bloodshot, tears strkng down his cheeks. "Sasuke didn't make it." The words cracked in the air like thunder. Kakashi's chest tightened. He looked down at the boy in his arms, not the storm, not the fury, but just Naruto, shaking and small, a child bearing too much. Kakashi pulled him closer, voice low but firm, forcing steadiness he didn't feel. "Rest, Naruto. You did enough. I'll carry the rest." The boy shuddered, whispering something too faint to catch, before his body went limp in Kakashi's hold. On the bridge, the battle was over. But the cost lingered heavy in the mist. Sakura sprinted across the ruined bridge, her boots slipping on BLD and ice. "Sasuke," she cried, skidding to her knees beside him. His body was sprawled, pale and still, BLD pooling beneath him. Her hands shook as she pressed them to his chest. She had seen too much death already, but nothing prepared her for this, not her teammate, not Sasuke. Tears streamed down her cheeks, her sobs echoing into the mist. "Don't you dare leave us, not you too." Then she froze. A faint, shallow breath. Her eyes widened. He's breathing. Relief crashed through her like a wave. Her tears didn't stop, but her sobs turned to frantic laughter as she shouted back, "He's alive. He's still alive." The villagers, who had been frozen in horror, surged forward at her call. Tazuna, Inari, Tsunami, and others rushed to help, their fear giving way to urgency. Rough but steady hands lifted Sasuke's limp body, others moving to Kakashi and Naruto, both collapsed from the storm and the fight. The survivors gathered their battered heroes, carrying them away from the broken bridge. The demons were gone, the mist was thinning, but the weight of what had happened clung to every soul present. Children had fought for them. Children had bled for them. And the villagers would never forget it. The days after the battle passed heavy, slow, and painful. Sakura lay in the healer's hut first, the bite of stitches tugging at her skin as they closed the gashes along her side. She bit her lip and bore it, whispering to herself that she had to be strong because she had seen Naruto collapse, because she had seen Sasuke nearly die, because she couldn't let them carry the burden alone. Sasuke's recovery was harder. The blow from Haku's blade had broken ribs, pierced his side, and left him dangerously close to death. Surgery was done in silence, villagers working with precision and fear as they prayed the Uchiha boy would live. When it was over, he remained unconscious for 2 days, his breaths shallow but steady. Naruto slept like the dead, his storm leaving his body drained of all strength. His hands still trembled when he dreamed, his face twisting with the memory of rage. But when he stirred awake, he found Sakura sitting close, her arm in fresh stitches, and Sasuke breathing beside them. Relief washed through him, but so did guilt. He swore quietly never again would he lose control like that. Kakashi's wounds were less visible. He had fought Zabuza blade to blade, and though his body bore cuts and bruises, rest was all he needed. But his silence lingered heavier than any scar. He stayed by his team, watching them breathe, watching them heal, and wondering how much more they would have to endure. A week passed before the villagers gathered at the docks to see them off. Tsunami wept openly, thanking them again and again. Inari, clutching his small fists, shouted that he would grow up to be brave, just like them. Even Tazuna, who once mocked and doubted, bowed his head deeply, his voice thick with gratitude. The villagers cheered them as heroes, though all three knew the weight of that word. They had seen too much, lost too much, to believe in it fully. As the boat pulled from the shore, Sakura leaned on the railing, her stitches still sore but her heart a little lighter. Sasuke sat with his ribs bound, staring out at the water in silence. Naruto clutched his mother's sword across his lap, his eyes set ahead, quiet and unflinching. Team 7 had come to wave as recruits. They left as hunters. The boat's rocking gave way to the sharp thrum of rotor blades. Salt air whipped past them as the hunter's helicopter lifted off from the small coastal dock, pulling away from wave. The island shrank behind them, a shadow in the mist, its scars still bleeding into the sea. Inside the cabin, the four of them sat in silence. Sakura pressed a hand to her bandaged side, her stitches pulling with each breath. Sasuke sat rigid, ribs bound tight, his eyes fixed on the floor, unreadable. Naruto leaned his head back against the metal wall, his mother's sword resting across his knees, his fingers gripping the hilt so tightly his knuckles whitened. Kakashi, though outwardly calm, studied each of them carefully, his single visible eye heavy with thought. Hours later, the helicopter cut across the tree line of the fire country. The leaf spread out beneath them, its towers and streets lit golden in the late afternoon sun. The sight should have been comforting, but for the 4 battered hunters in training, it only reminded them of the report they owed, and the questions waiting to be asked. The helicopter touched down on the pad behind the Hokage tower. The door slid open, wind whipping at their hair as they stepped down one by one. Their legs wobbled from exhaustion, but none of them fell. Together, they climbed the stairs, the great stone face of the tower looming above them. The guards at the doors stood straighter as they approached, eyes flicking with recognition at the battered genin team. No one spoke. Kakashi led them inside. The air in the Hokage's office was warm, filled with the scent of paper and old smoke. Scrolls lined the shelves, and in the center of it all sat Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage, pipe in hand. His aged eyes lifted as the 4 entered, his expression unreadable at first, but his gaze lingered on their wounds, on their tired faces, on the silent weight they carried back from wave. Kakashi bowed slightly, his voice low. Mission complete. The Hokage set aside his pipe. He leaned forward, hands clasped. His eyes moved over Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, and finally Kakashi. Report, he said. And the room fell heavy with silence. The office was so quiet that even the scratch of the Hokage's pipe against the desk sounded loud. Hiruzen's weathered eyes locked onto Kakashi first, then each of the genin in turn. Nuke-nin. His voice, though calm, carried an edge that made Sakura stiffen. You're telling me your first mission outside the village turned into an A-class engagement? Kakashi gave a single nod. Zabuza Momochi. The demon of the mist. Confirmed. The Hokage's eyes widened slightly. He leaned back in his chair, drawing in a slow breath. I had heard whispers that he had fallen, that his corruption had taken root. But to think he would surface there, his gaze flicked to Sasuke, who stood silent and stiff, ribs bound beneath his shirt. And you? They tell me your eyes changed. For a moment, Sasuke hesitated. Then, with a clenched jaw, he let his vision burn. Red bled into black, 2 tomos circling each pupil like a curse. The Sharingan glowed sharp and unnatural in the dim light of the office. Gasps rose from the advisors standing along the walls. Hiruzen stared, his face unreadable. So it awakens in you as well. The curse and the gift of your bloodline. Sasuke's eyes dimmed, fading back to their ordinary black. He said nothing, but his fists trembled faintly at his sides. Hiruzen exhaled smoke, then leaned forward again. You 4 walked into what should have been a low-class extermination, and instead faced a rogue hunter turned demon, and his apprentice. You destroyed them both, and lived to return. That is not survival by luck, that is strength. He picked up a scroll, marking it with the ink of finality. The mission is complete. A-class. Their bounties will be processed and added to your pay. Relief flickered across Sakura's face, though exhaustion still weighed her shoulders. Naruto simply gripped his mother's sword tighter, his eyes lowered. Sasuke stood silent, his expression hard, unreadable. Dismissed, Hiruzen said at last. The 3 genin bowed and left the office, their steps dragging with fatigue. But Kakashi stayed. The Hokage's old eyes shifted to him once more. You wish to speak. The doors closed softly behind Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura as they left the Hokage's office. Their footsteps echoed down the long corridor, slow and dragging. They should have been proud, an A-class mission complete, their names already whispered with respect, but there was no celebration in their eyes. Sakura leaned against the wall once they were out of sight, her stitches aching. Sasuke walked stiffly, ribs bound tight, refusing to show weakness though every step drew a wince. Naruto gripped his mother's sword across his lap as they sat, his gaze distant, haunted. They were hunters now. But they were also children who had nearly died. Inside the office, silence lingered. Hiruzen's gaze rested on Kakashi, who still stood before the desk. The Hokage's pipe smoldered in his hand, smoke curling toward the ceiling. "You stayed," he said quietly. "Yes," Kakashi answered. "There are things they don't need to hear yet." Hiruzen gestured for him to speak. "On that bridge," Kakashi said, voice low, "Naruto awakened something. Not training, not technique. Rage. Soul resonance so wild it nearly consumed him. The boy was a storm. If I hadn't been there," he trailed off, his lone visible eye narrowing. "I don't know if he would have stopped." The Hokage exhaled smoke, his brow furrowed. "And Sasuke?" Kakashi hesitated, then sighed. "He awakened the Sharingan. Not from peace. From grief. From rage. He told me he saw his brother again, standing in BLD. He fights like a boy trying to change a nightmare, but his eyes are walking the same cursed path." Hiruzen set the pipe aside, folding his hands. His voice was heavy with years of regret. "Two children won the storm, won the shadow. If we treat them as weapons, they will break. Or worse, become the very demons they fight." "They're just kids," Kakashi murmured, his tone hardening. "Kids who've already seen too much." The Hokage closed his eyes. "Then keep them together. Balance them. Remind them why they fight. Because alone, they will fall. But together," his voice cracked faintly before he steadied it, "together they might endure." Kakashi bowed his head, the weight of the order heavy on his shoulders. "Understood." Hiruzen whispered into the smoke, more to himself than to his jonin, "May the gods forgive us for asking so much of children." The mission hall bustled with hunters turning in reports and collecting rewards, but when Team 7 scroll was called, a hush seemed to ripple through the room. Irika himself stepped forward, holding it with unusual care. "Mission complete," he said solemnly. "And this is your reward." Naruto took the scroll and cracked the seal. His eyes scanned the numbers and nearly bulged out of his head. 150 million yen, he blurted, his voice cracking. For us?" Sakura leaned in, her jaw dropping open so wide it nearly hit the floor. No way. That can't be right. That's more money than my entire family's saved in 10 years combined." Her hands shook as she grabbed the edge of the parchment, rereading it like her eyes were lying. Naruto let out a shaky chuckle, scratching the back of his head. "Guess slaying Nuke-Nin really pays better than chasing cats." His grin wobbled, equal parts pride and disbelief. Sasuke glanced at the numbers, then back at his teammates. He didn't flinch. Wealth was something he'd been born into, the Uchiha stores still supporting him, but even he had to pause. Pride flickered in his dark eyes. Not for the money, but for what it meant. Their BLD, their survival, had been recognized. Kakashi appeared behind them, hands in his pockets. His voice was dry, but there was warmth beneath it. "Don't let the number get to your heads. This was an A-class fluke." "But," his lone eye curved, his tone softening, "you've earned every yen of it." Sakura's smile trembled as she hugged the scroll to her chest. Naruto grinned, his chest puffing up. Sasuke gave only a small nod, but the pride in his stance spoke for him. For a moment, standing together with 150 million yen worth of proof in their hands, they weren't just survivors of Wave. They were hunters. They were a team. The mess hall buzzed with chatter, the smell of grilled meat hanging heavy in the air. Team 7 claimed a table near the back, for once not sitting like soldiers on duty but like kids allowed to breathe. They all ordered steak, thick, juicy cuts brought out on steaming plates. The first bite was heaven after weeks of field rations and bitter medicine. Naruto nearly as he tore into his portion, grinning wide. This is worth fighting demons for," he said around a mouthful, making Sakura laugh despite herself. For the first time since Wave, their table filled with light. Sakura giggled through bites, teasing Naruto about his manners. Sasuke smirked at their bickering, a quiet warmth in his eyes. Even Naruto, usually loud and brash, softened his laughter, ringing genuine, not forced. Kakashi lingered only long enough to see it. His eyes softened at the sight of them bloodied kids, but kids nonetheless laughing with full plates before them. He raised a lazy hand. Enjoy it. You've got the week off. Naruto's eyes lit up. Then come home with me, he said suddenly, glancing at Sakura and Sasuke. For dinner. For family. Sakura didn't hesitate. Of course, she said, smiling so brightly it made her stitches pull. Sasuke said nothing at first, then gave the faintest smile, a quiet nod. Naruto grinned so hard it almost hurt. For a moment, the darkness of wave didn't hang so heavy. Kakashi turned to leave, hands in his pockets, but his steps slowed just long enough to glance back once more. The sound of their laughter followed him out, softer than the storm but stronger in its own way. The mess hall's glow faded behind him as Kakashi stepped into the cool night. The sound of his team's laughter still echoed faintly in his ears. It eased something in him, but it didn't silence the heaviness coiled in his chest. Still brooding, huh? The voice drifted from the shadows. Kakashi glanced up, his single eye catching the unmistakable outline of white hair in the moonlight. Jiraiya leaned against a post near the training field, a flask in one hand, his grin thin but real. Jiraiya, Kakashi murmured. The Sannin stepped forward, his grin fading as he studied Kakashi's posture. Heard about Wave? Sabuza. Haku. And somehow those kids of yours walked away. Barely, Kakashi answered, voice flat. Jiraiya's face hardened. Naruto. Kakashi gave a slow nod. He awakened something. A storm that nearly consumed him. Raw soul resonance, born of grief. I thought I'd have to cut him down to stop it. And Sasuke, his voice dropped lower. The Sharingan. Triggered by rage. Jiraiya cursed under his breath and tilted the flask back, taking a long swig. DMN. They're too young for this. They're just kids, Kakashi said, softer this time. His tone carried something raw, almost pleading. But the world doesn't care. Hiruzen's made it clear they need to stay together, or they'll fall apart. For once, Jiraiya didn't smirk, didn't joke. He looked at Kakashi with weary eyes. You're right. But I'll say this much, he paused, his voice thickening. Naruto's a good kid. Even with all the scars, even with that storm in him. He laughs, he loves, he fights for people who aren't even his own blood. His parents would be proud. Kakashi's eye softened, the words landing heavier than he wanted to admit. Minato. Kushina. He exhaled through his mask, the memory of their faces flashing. They'd be proud, but I don't know if they'd forgive us. For letting it come to this. Jiraiya put the flask away and clapped Kakashi's shoulder with surprising gentleness. Maybe. But I know this: he carries their strength. Minato's will. Kushina's fire. What he needs now is guidance. You keep him steady, and I'll make sure he has the power to control that storm. Kakashi tilted his head. So you're going to stop disappearing? For a moment, Jiraiya looked away, guilt written plain across his face. The silence stretched before he muttered, he deserves better than I've given him. I'll try. The night air was heavy, but for the first time since Wave, Kakashi felt the faint stirrings of something like hope. The limo purred softly as it left the airfield behind, carrying them through the beating heart of Seoul. Neon signs and endless storefronts rolled past the tinted windows, the city alive with color and noise. It was nothing like the still, mist-choked bridge they'd left behind. Naruto was in his element here. He leaned forward on the seat, practically pressed to the glass as he pointed out every landmark. That corner shop. Best fried chicken in the world. And over there, that's where Rumi beat me in sparring once, in front of everyone. Still won't let me live it down. His laugh was big, bright, unguarded in a way Sakura had never heard before. Sasuke watched him quietly, his usual guarded stare softening at the sight. This wasn't the storm, the boy raging with bloodshot eyes. This was Naruto Uzumaki, alive and young, showing them his world. Sakura smirked, leaning toward Sasuke. Someone's got a crush. Sasuke didn't respond immediately. He kept his gaze on Naruto, who was still rambling about Celine's cooking, about Myra's sharp tongue, about Zoe's chatter that never ended. Finally, the Uchiha allowed the faintest smile to tug at his lips. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Sakura blinked, then hid her own grin behind her hand. Naruto never noticed. His voice bubbled with energy, his gestures animated, his eyes brighter than they'd been since Wave. For the first time, Sasuke and Sakura saw not just the hunter, not the boy consumed by rage, but the kid underneath, the one who still laughed, who still wanted to share his world with the people he cared about. Souls stretched out around them, massive and vibrant, and for the first time in a long while, their team felt less like soldiers and more like friends. The limo door swung open and Naruto bounded out first, his grin so wide it seemed to light up the courtyard. To Zoe, watching from the steps, he didn't look like the hunter who had gone off to fight demons. He looked like the same loud boy who joked too much and ate too fast. But then she saw the faint scars along his arms, the stiffness in his shoulders when he moved, and her chest tightened. He's changed. Even if he doesn't see it, he's changed. Rumi ran forward, braid bouncing behind her. She threw her arms around him with a cry that was half relief, half scolding. Idiot! You didn't even call when you landed. Naruto laughed and hugged her back, and from the outside, it looked natural. But the way he clung to her, even just for a second too long, told Celine more than his laughter ever could. He needed this. Needed her. Then the others stepped out. Sakura bowed politely, her green eyes cautious but warm. Disciplined, Celine thought instantly. Still green, but she knows how to carry herself. Sasuke followed, his expression unreadable, dark hair framing his pale face. Myra's eyes caught on him before she could stop herself. The longer she stared, the faster the heat crept up her neck. The quiet way he moved, the way his gaze flickered briefly to hers before darting away, every bit of it sent her heart into a stutter. When he turned his head sharply, hiding the faint blush in his own cheeks, Myra's breath caught. So he noticed too. Zoe, oblivious, circled them like a whirlwind, gasping, "Oh my God, Naruto, you didn't tell us they were this cute." She poked Sakura's arm, winked at Sasuke, and got a half-scowl, half-flustered glance for her trouble. Celine studied all three of them as the lantern light caught their faces. She had seen hunters come and go, seen veterans return with dead eyes and cracked souls. But these children, they were different. They carried wounds, yes, but there was still fire in their eyes. And when Naruto beamed at them, introducing them one by one with pride, Celine realized something. He wasn't just proud of his teammates. He needed them. They weren't comrades or classmates in his eyes. They were family. And to the outsiders, Zoe, Mira, even Celine herself, it was the first time they truly saw it. That evening, lanterns glowed along the courtyard walls, casting soft golden light across the garden. The air smelled faintly of rain on stone, the hum of the city muffled behind the high walls of Celine's home. Rumi lingered near the porch, pretending to listen as Zoe chattered away and Mira politely asked Sakura about her fighting style. She smiled and nodded in all the right places, but her eyes kept drifting back to him. Naruto. He was in the center of it all, animated as ever, hands moving as he teased Sasuke. You should have seen him on the boat, Naruto laughed, voice bright. He looked like he'd swallowed a lemon the whole way. Sasuke scowled but didn't bite back, which only made Naruto grin wider. The sound of his laugh hit Rumi like a wave. For the first time since she'd seen him step out of that limo, scarred, worn from battle, older than he had any right to be, he looked whole. Not the boy she worried about, not the hunter carrying grief in his chest, but the same Naruto who had once blushed so hard he fell off a stool trying to bow. Her heart leapt. She realized she'd been holding her breath, and when she exhaled, it trembled. She wanted to look away, to hide the flush creeping into her cheeks, but her eyes betrayed her. Every time he smiled, every time his voice rang out, she felt that tug inside her chest again. He caught her gaze for just a moment, half a glance, as he teased Sasuke and gave her that same crooked grin she remembered from years ago. It was different now, touched with something steadier, something earned. But it was his smile all the same. Rumi's pulse raced. She forced her eyes back to Sakura, nodding quickly at something she hadn't heard, but the warmth in her chest wouldn't fade. For all the scars, for all the weight Wave had carved into him, Naruto still smiled like that. And to Rumi, it made him feel whole again. The courtyard felt alive that night, laughter spilling out into the lantern glow. Zoe was the loudest of them all, practically bouncing between Naruto's teammates like she'd known them forever. "You guys are so cool," she gushed, clapping her hands. "Like, actual demon slayers, and you're our age. Sasuke, you're like ugh, broody but hot. And Sakura? Gorgeous and smart. I can't stand it." She threw herself down dramatically on the grass, earning chuckles all around. Sakura flushed, her hands fluttering a little. I am really not." But Zoe cut her off, wagging a finger. "Nope. Don't even try. You're appealing and badass. I said what I said." Naruto burst into laughter, loud and unrestrained. Mira rolled her eyes, sharp but not unkind. "Zoe, you sound like a gossip magazine come to life." "Oh, sorry Miss Reserved and Deadly," Naruto shot back, grinning. "You gonna stab me with sarcasm again?" Mira smirked, tossing her pink hair over her shoulder. "Only if you keep talking." That set them off bickering, Naruto puffing up like a rooster while Mira cut him down with calm one-liners. The others watched, entertained Rumi most of all. Her smile was bright, unguarded, lighting up her whole face as she looked at Naruto. He had come back from Wave scarred, shaken, yet here he was, sparring with words instead of steel, his grin wide enough to make her heart leap. Sasuke, usually silent, actually chuckled under his breath. The sound startled Sakura at first, but then she laughed too, her green eyes warm. There was no stiffness to it, no forced politeness, just genuine happiness, rare and fragile. For a while, the weight of Wave fell away. They weren't survivors or soldiers or heirs of clans and legacies. They were kids, loud, laughing, alive. And yet, beneath it all, the air hummed with something heavier. Two worlds had collided here, the harsh discipline of hunters who bled for every step forward, and the softer world of music, camaraderie, and simple living. Two worlds completely different, but on this night, under lantern light and laughter, they merged. Because these children had learned to live in both. The laughter from the courtyard carried easily into the house, spilling over the walls and filling the rooms with a warmth Celine hadn't heard in years. She stood in the hallway when the knock came, soft, measured. Kakashi. He looked the same as he always did, one eye covered, posture relaxed but careful, like every movement was thought through twice. She let him in without question. He didn't join the children. Instead, he stood with her at the edge of the garden, watching them from the shadows as they ate and teased one another. Naruto sat in the middle of it all, bright as a flame. Rumi's laughter rang out beside him, Zoe leaned across the table to press food into Sakura's hands, Mira cut Naruto down with sharp words that only made him laugh louder, and Sasuke, quiet, contained Sasuke, even allowed himself a smile. "They're loud," Celine said softly, folding her arms. "They're alive," Kakashi answered. His single visible eye softened, his voice turning low, serious. "Naruto, he's stronger than he knows. Stronger than most give him credit for." But, he hesitated, searching for the words. "He's carrying weight he shouldn't have to. His parents, Wave, Sasuke, he'll bleed himself dry for the people he loves." Celine's gaze lingered on Naruto, the way his grin widened when Rumi leaned closer, the way he never let anyone else's plate sit empty. Her chest tightened. He always has. Kakashi nodded. I can't stay. There are reports I need to follow up on. But he'll need all of you, your girls, Rumi, even your DSPLN. More than he knows yet. Celine said nothing at first. Just looked at the boy in the lantern glow hole, smiling, but fragile in ways no one else at that table could see. Finally, she whispered, I'll protect him as if he were my own. Kakashi's eye curved, the faintest trace of relief in it. That's all I can ask. He turned and left quietly, his footsteps fading into the night. When Celine returned to the table, she smiled at the children laughing, bickering, reaching across plates. She said nothing about Kakashi's visit. But she watched Naruto more closely than ever, and when he laughed too loud, too bright, she saw the cracks beneath it. The table was chaos in the best way. Zoe had declared herself MSTR of ceremonies halfway through the meal and was now orchestrating everything with dramatic flair. Okay, new rule, everybody has to say the weirdest thing they've ever eaten, she announced, pointing her chopsticks like a commander. Naruto grinned, chewing with his mouth full. Raw octopus. Zoe shrieked. That's disgusting. It was delicious, he shot back, puffing out his chest. Mira rolled her eyes. Typical. He'd eat dirt if someone dared him. Would not. Naruto protested, and the bickering started all over again, Mira's dry sarcasm only fueling his fire. Sakura giggled behind her hand, shaking her head. For once, her smile wasn't strained. Sasuke even smirked quietly when Zoe turned the spotlight on him, demanding an answer. I don't play games, he said flatly. Boo! Zoe cried, collapsing onto the table like she'd been mortally wounded. Broody Prince strikes again. That earned the loudest laugh from Naruto all night, and even Rumi couldn't hold hers back. Her laughter bubbled out, bright and alive, her cheeks glowing as she glanced at Naruto. He caught her eyes mid-laugh, and for a moment, the noise around them faded. Just her, just him, their smiles tethering them together like they were the only two people in the room. From the doorway, Celine lingered with folded arms, her sharp eyes softening. She had seen so many children grow under her care, but this was different. Naruto and Rumi weren't just childhood friends anymore. They were each other's anchor. When the plates were finally cleared and the lantern light burned lower, the others drifted toward their quarters, still buzzing with laughter. Naruto stretched, excused himself, and headed toward the garden. Rumi followed minutes later, quiet as a shadow. The night air wrapped around them both, cool and calm after the noise. Naruto leaned back on the porch rail, looking up at the stars, his grin smaller now but still there. Rumi stood beside him, braid brushing her shoulder, her heart pounding loud enough she swore he could hear it. For a long moment, neither spoke. They didn't need to. The laughter from earlier still lingered, soft and warm between them. The garden was hushed, lanterns burning low, shadows stretching long across the stones. Naruto leaned on the porch rail, his face tilted toward the stars. The usual wild energy in him was quiet now, replaced by something softer, something weightier. Rumi sat beside him, close enough to hear the steady rhythm of his breathing. She'd laughed all evening, bright and unguarded, but now her hands were curled in her lap, fingers fidgeting with her braid. Naruto's voice finally came, low and almost hesitant, as though he wasn't sure if he should say it aloud. When the darkness crept in, when I thought I couldn't hold it anymore, I thought of you. His jaw tightened, but his eyes softened as they found hers. And I was steadied. The words hit her like a spark to dry tinder. Her chest tightened, her face burned hot. She swallowed, afraid to speak, afraid she'd ruin the moment. He couldn't know what that did to her. How the thought of him holding onto her image in his darkest hour made her feel like she could fly. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Instead, before her courage faltered, she leaned in and brushed a kiss against his cheek. It was quick, almost clumsy, but it lingered all the same, her warmth against his skin, the rush of her breath, the unspoken promise carried in it. Naruto froze. Rumi pulled back instantly, cheeks blazing, braids swaying as she scrambled to her feet. "Good night," she whispered, voice almost too soft to hear, before hurrying into the house like the ground was about to swallow her whole. The door slid shut behind her, leaving Naruto alone under the stars. He sat there for a long moment, unmoving, his mind blank. Slowly, almost disbelieving, his hand rose to his cheek, touching the spot where her lips had been. A smile broke across his face, small at first, then wider, unstoppable. His chest felt lighter than it had in weeks. Leaning back on the porch rail, he looked up at the night sky, the stars clearer than ever. His heart still hammered, but the weight he'd been carrying felt different. Not gone, but steadied, just like he'd told her. He closed his eyes, a quiet chuckle slipping out. A great night indeed. Rumi slipped into the bedroom she shared with Zoe and Mira, closing the door quickly behind her. Her face was still burning, her heart beating so loud she thought it would give her away. She pressed her back against the wood, trying to breathe, but the squeak of Zoe's voice cut through the dark. Zoe sang, sitting up in bed like a cat spotting prey. Why is someone all red and glowing? Rumi froze. And no reason, she stammered, tugging at her braid as if that would cover her cheeks. Mira narrowed her eyes from where she sat cross-legged with a book. Calm, reserved as always, but her gaze was sharp. Your lipstick smudged, she said simply. Rumi's hands flew to her mouth. Sure enough, the faintest smear was there. Her stomach dropped. Zoe let out a gasp so dramatic it rattled the windows. She scrambled over, grabbing Rumi by the shoulders and shaking her lightly. Did you kiss him? You kissed him, didn't you? You totally kissed him. It wasn't. Rumi sputtered, her face nearly as red as her lipstick. Oh my God, she kissed him. Zoe squealed, bouncing on the bed like a child on too much sugar. My ship has sailed. My heart is full. Mira, though quieter, wasn't letting her off either. She tilted her head, lips curling in the faintest smirk. So that's why you disappeared after dinner. And here we thought you just needed fresh air. Rumi buried her face in her hands. It was just a kiss on the cheek, she mumbled. Zoe gasped again, falling back onto the bed like she'd been shot. On the cheek today. On the lips tomorrow. Married by spring. Zoe. Rumi hissed, throwing a pillow at her. But she couldn't stop the smile tugging at her lips even as her face stayed hot, even as Myra's cool gaze and Zoe's relentless squeals pinned her down. She felt lighter, brighter, like her heart was too big for her chest. And when she finally laid down, hiding under the covers, Rumi pressed her fingers to her lips and smiled into the dark. Outside, in another room, Naruto was still awake, grinning up at the ceiling with his hand against his cheek. Two hearts racing, worlds apart but tethered all the same. Naruto padded into the room he shared with Sasuke and Sakura, grinning like a fool. He felt lighter than air, like the ground wasn't even beneath his feet. Every step still carried the ghost of her kiss, and his hand kept brushing his cheek as if afraid the warmth might fade. He flopped down onto his futon, still smiling, when Sakura stirred. She propped herself up sleepily, rubbing her eyes. Naruto, what are you so? Her voice trailed off. Her gaze sharpened. Even in the dim light, she saw the faint smear of lipstick on his cheek. Her eyes widened. Naruto, is that? Naruto blinked, confused. What? Sakura pointed at her own face, a knowing look crossing hers. On your cheek. Naruto touched the spot again, cheeks burning this time. He laughed nervously, trying and failing to play it cool. Oh, nothing. Just a good night. He yanked the blanket over his head so fast it made Sakura blink. But she didn't press. Instead, she lay back down, a small smile tugging at her lips. For all the BLD and battles they'd gone through, this seeing Naruto grinning like that was proof that he was still a boy too. Across the room, Sasuke shifted in his sleep, unaware. Sakura closed her eyes, still smiling faintly. So that's what steadies him, she thought. The week stretched on like a gift none of them had expected. For once, there were no missions, no BLD, no looming threats. Just mornings filled with training songs echoing from the dojo, afternoons wandering through Seoul's buzzing streets, and evenings of laughter around Celine's table. Sasuke and Mira, though both reserved, somehow kept ending up near each other. At first, it was accidental paired off during drills, sitting side by side during meals. But soon, there were conversations, quiet and clipped, and the rare flashes of red on their cheeks when their eyes lingered too long. Neither admitted anything, of course, but Zoe didn't let them off easy. Every time she caught a glance exchanged, she squealed, "Oh my God, Mira, you're so obvious," until Mira smacked her with a pillow. Zoe herself attached to Sakura like a shadow. She followed her everywhere, praising her skill, her beauty, her patience. "You're like a big sister I always wanted," she declared one morning, linking arms with Sakura. The constant affection made Sakura laugh awkwardly, but deep down, it warmed her. For once, she wasn't just the bookish one or the weakest on the team, she was admired, seen. And then there was Naruto and Rumi. They didn't need words most of the time. Just being near each other was enough. They walked the market side by side, Rumi's braid brushing his shoulder whenever she leaned closer to see something. They sparred together in the afternoons, wooden blades clashing until their laughter drowned out their panting breaths. And in the evenings, when everyone else was bickering or teasing, Naruto always seemed to find her eyes across the table. Each smile they shared carried an unspoken promise, "I'm here. You steady me." Celine watched all of it unfold, arms folded, lips pressed in what she insisted was disapproval. But even she couldn't hide the softness in her gaze when she saw the children laughing together. Soldiers, yes. But still children too. It was a week of stolen warmth in a life built on shadows. And none of them wanted it to end. Their final night in Seoul came too quickly. The house was alive with laughter, Zoe dragging Sakura into another silly game, Mira and Sasuke sitting close enough that their shoulders brushed, and Celine quietly preparing tea as if nothing unusual was happening. But Naruto slipped away. He climbed onto the rooftop, the city light stretching out in a glittering sea, stars faint above them but still there. The air was cool, clean, and carried the hum of a world still alive. He lay back, hands behind his head, letting himself breathe. The tiles shifted softly behind him. Rumi. She settled down beside him, knees pulled up, braid trailing over her shoulder. For a while, neither spoke. They didn't need to. The silence between them wasn't heavy, it was steady, comfortable, like the beat of a second heart. Finally, Naruto turned his head, his grin softer than usual. "Hard to leave this place." Her lips curved, though her eyes stayed on the horizon. "Hard to leave you." He blinked, caught off guard, his chest tightening. Before he could say anything, she leaned sideways, resting her head gently against his shoulder. The contact was light, almost hesitant, but it steadied him more than words ever could. They sat like that, the city buzzing beneath them, the stars faint above. Two kids who had seen too much, holding on to something small and bright in the dark. When she finally whispered, "Come back safe," her voice cracked just slightly. Naruto smiled, his hand brushing hers on the rooftop tile. "Always. As long as I can think of you, I'll always come back." Her cheeks burned, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she squeezed his hand once before slipping back down the roof, leaving him staring at the stars with that same frozen, dazed grin. Tomorrow would drag them back into BLD and shadows. But tonight they were just two hearts on a rooftop, steadying each other against the storm. The night was winding down when Naruto climbed back down from the rooftop, his cheeks still warm from Rumi's words. He thought he'd sneak into his room unnoticed, but the soft creak of the hall gave him away. Celine stood there, arms crossed at first, her sharp gaze pinning him like always. For a moment, he thought he was about to be scolded for wandering around so late. But then her expression softened, and before he could say anything, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Naruto froze. Celine wasn't one for open displays of affection. She was discipline, rules, sharp edges wrapped in silk. Yet here she was, holding him like a mother holds her son. "You are always welcome here," she murmured against his shoulder. Her voice carried the weight of everything unsaid: loss, grief, love, and pride. "No matter what path you take, no matter how far the cord drags you, this home will be yours too." Naruto's throat tightened. Slowly, carefully, he hugged her back. He didn't trust his voice, but the way he clung to her spoke louder than words. When she finally pulled back, she patted his cheek, the same cheek Rumi had kissed, and gave him a small, tired smile. "Now go to bed, before I change my mind and work you until sunrise." Naruto laughed, the sound a little shaky but real, and bowed his head. "Thank you, Celine." She watched him disappear into the room, her arms folding again, but her heart heavier and warmer all at once. For the first time in years, she thought not just of Rumi's future, but of Naruto's too. And she knew, wherever his path led, this boy carried both her pride and her protection. The sun rose pale and gold over Seoul, casting long shadows across the courtyard. The limo waited at the gate, sleek and black, its engine purring like a reminder that time was up. Team 7 stood with their packs slung over their shoulders, blades at their sides. None of them said much. Sasuke's silence was usual, Sakura's was new, and Naruto's grin wavered every time he looked back at the house. Celine stood tall by the steps, arms crossed but eyes soft. She didn't speak right away, just let the weight of the moment linger. When Naruto stepped forward, she opened her arms. He didn't hesitate, he hugged her tightly, breathing in the faint scent of lavender and steel. "You are always welcome here," she said again, firmer this time, so there would be no doubt. "Don't forget it." Naruto nodded, blinking quickly. "I won't." Zoe barreled forward next, wrapping Naruto and Sakura into the same crushing hug. "You guys better come back. Like, all of you. No excuses. And don't you dare let Sasuke get all the glory." She winked at him, earning only a scowl which only made her laugh louder. Mira was calmer, but when her eyes lingered on Sasuke, her cheeks pinked. She bowed slightly, voice steady. "Be careful. And don't be reckless." Sasuke gave the faintest smirk, which was somehow more honest than words. And then there was Rumi. She stepped forward slowly, braids swaying, her eyes locked on Naruto's. For a heartbeat, no one else existed. She smiled soft, trembling at the edges, and whispered, "Come back safe." Naruto's grin faltered, but only because it was too big to hold. He leaned closer, his voice low so only she could hear. "Always. As long as I can think of you." Her cheeks flushed deep red, but her smile held steady. She didn't dare kiss him again with everyone watching, but when his hand brushed hers briefly before he turned to leave, her heart leapt anyway. The limo door shut. The engine roared. And as it rolled down the drive, Celine and the girls stood together, watching until it vanished into the distance. The courtyard felt quieter after they were gone. But in that silence, Celine murmured, almost to herself, "They'll carry each other through." Rumi touched her cheek, remembering the rooftop, remembering his words. She whispered into the morning air, "Come back to me, Naruto." So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 4. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.